Okay, today we are looking at writing equations. The last couple of days we have been taking the equations and we've been graphing them. Today we're going the opposite direction. Today they are giving us the vertex and a couple of coordinates that we can use, and it's our job to write the equation. Now we're going to write it in vertex form. So vertex form again is y equals a, and then in parentheses you have your x minus h with your squared plus k. So all we're going to do is we're going to plug in some of this information that they give us, and we are going to figure out the a value. Okay, so if we know the vertex, we know that the vertex is the x and y value. So actually our vertex, let me take it back, we call that our h and our k in this case. So if my h, my x value, is a -1, we're always going to put that into the parenthesis here. But remember, it's always opposite of what our x says. So if that says -1, then we're going to put a +1 inside the parenthesis. It's always going to be the opposite. Now the k value, or the y value, always is what it says it is. So if it says -6, then that k value at the end is going to be a -6. Okay, so I've got a y equals and an a. Now the only piece of the information that I'm missing out of this equation is what is my a value. That's the last thing I need to figure out. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this equation that I've already got started, and I'm going to choose one of these other two coordinates. You can pick whichever one you want. Doesn't matter. I'm going to pick one of these two coordinates, and these are an x and a y value. Okay, and I'm going to plug those x and y values in for these x and y values. And then the only variable I'm going to have left is an a, and then I can figure out what the a needs to be. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this equation as my final answer, except I need to figure out what the a value is. I know it's going to be x plus 1 squared minus 6. I know that's part of the final answer equation. I just need to know what that a value is. So after I figure out what a equals here in a minute, I'm going to put that number right there in front of the parenthesis, and I'm going to be done. So let's use, I'm choosing this one, x value of 2 and a y value of -51. So I'm going to rewrite this equation. Instead of y equals, I'm going to use -51. So -51 equals, I don't know what a is, so we'll leave that as a. Now inside the parenthesis, instead of x, I'm going to use the x value of 2. So instead of an x plus 1, it's going to be a 2 plus 1. Then you need your squared, then you need your -6. So now when I plug my x and y values in, the only value I have left to figure out is the a. So let's work all this out and figure out what the a is. Well, inside my parentheses, I have a 2 plus 1, which is a 3, squared, -6. And 3 squared is 9. Well, instead of saying a9, because these are attached, right? 3 squared is 9. Instead of saying a9, we actually want to say 9a. And then your -6 is at the end. Okay, so now we're solving for a. We'll divide at the end. So we need to add 6 to both sides. All right, so -51 plus 6 is going to be -45. All right, yeah, let's make sure on the calculator. -45 equals 9a. Last step to solve for a, we need to divide by 9. Divide by 9. So -45 divided by 9. -5 equals my a. So that's the last piece of the puzzle I need. If -5 is my a, then -5 is what's going to go right in front of my parenthesis there. Okay, so there's the equation. That's going to have those three coordinates. All right, so let's do it again. I've got y equals, the first thing I'm going to do is plug in my vertex. My vertex is 4, 3. So inside the parenthesis, I've got an x. If that's a +4, then inside my parenthesis, I need to have the opposite of that. I need to have a -4. And then the squared always, and then my y value, or my k, actually, is a +3. So at the end, we're going to have a +3. I don't know what the a is. So I'm going to come down here and go ahead and write my final answer. I know I've got an x minus 4 squared plus 3. I know that. The last piece of the puzzle I'm missing is this a value out front. So pick either coordinate you want. Let's choose this one, 8 and 11. 8 is an x value, 11 is a y value. So let's plug those two values in here, and then I can solve for a. So instead of y equals, we're going to say 11 equals. I don't know what a is, so we leave it as a. Now instead of x minus 4 inside the parenthesis, it's going to be 8 minus 4 inside the parenthesis. We still need a squared, and we still need a plus 3. 11 equals 8 minus 4 is 4. Still have your squared, plus 3. 11 equals, now 4 squared is 16, right? So instead of saying a times 16, really that's just 16a. My plus 3 is hanging out at the end by himself. Now to solve for a, we need to subtract 3 from both sides. So 11 minus 3 is going to be 8. And on the right, we still have a 16a. To get rid of the 16, we're going to divide by 16 on both sides. 8 divided by 16, 1/2 equals a. So since my a is 1/2, that's the number that needs to go in front of the parenthesis. There's the equation. All right, a couple more examples down here. All right, so again, we are going to plug in our h and our k. That's our vertex, h and k. So remember, this is always an x opposite, all right? The x value is always opposite, and so it says minus 2, we got to use a plus 2. There's a squared, and then the k value here is a negative 3. So let's go ahead and write our final answer down here. Y equals, I don't know what the a is, so I'm going to leave myself some space. I know I've got an x plus 2 with a squared, and I know I've got a minus 3. I just got to figure out what the a value is. Oh, let's see. Let's use 1 and 15. Doesn't matter which coordinate we use there. We can use either of these other coordinates, but 1 and 15 looks good for me. 1's an x value, 15's a y. So instead of y equals, we're going to say 15 equals. A, instead of x plus 2, it's actually going to be a 1 plus 2 with a squared minus 3. So 15 equals a 1 plus 2 is actually a 3 squared minus 3. 15 equals 3 squared is 9. So instead of saying a times 9, we're going to say 9 times a. Your minus 3 is still hanging out at the end. So now let's solve for a. We're going to add 3 to both sides. 15 plus 3 turns into 18 equals 9a. Divide by 9 to get the a by itself. 18 divided by 9, 2 equals our a. Since our a is 2, we're going to put that in the front. This last one, I'm going to take some shortcuts and try to do it a little bit quicker. Y equals, I've got my a. Remember, my vertex is h and k. This is always the opposite. So if it's a positive 3, we're going to use an x minus 3. And then k value is a negative 1, so we'll put that there. Okay, so final answer. I know I'm going to have a y equals. Leave some space for your a. I got an x minus 3 squared minus 1. I know that's part of the answer. I just need the a value now. So, all right, let's plug in. These look like nicer numbers. So instead of y equals, my y value here is negative 13. So negative 13 equals a, let's go ahead and do this in our head. 1, x is 1. So 1 minus 3 is negative 2 squared. Minus 1 hangs out at the end. Negative 13 equals negative 2 squared. Remember, this is negative 2 times negative 2. That's a positive 4. Positive 4a, right? We won't say a4, we say 4a minus 1. Now solve for a, so we're going to add 1. Negative 13 plus 1 gives us negative 12 equals 4a. Divide by 4 on both sides. Negative 12 divided by 4 gives us negative 3 equals our a value. So that negative 3 needs to go in front of the parentheses. All right, so there's our notes for writing equations given a vertex and a couple of coordinates.